shares are just sitting on right now.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to One Share. As a short reminder, none of what you will hear is financial advice, and this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only.
All right, we've got Quentin back. Welcome back, Quentin.
Thank you.
A lot of things to talk about. Today we got some breaking news from Strategy that they're changing a little bit their guidance on the common share. And from my end, I see there's not too much difference. I think it's just under 2.5 MNAV. They would use the ATM to their advantage, and let's see how the market reacts. I have mixed feelings. I don't know about you. It's very quickly after the first guidance that we had a few weeks ago on their earnings, right? And so I don't think the market will like it personally. That's my initial reaction. And however, I think that it's good if they felt that they needed to pivot. It's better to pivot quick. So I like that they're very proactive on that end, and they're able to change their mind quickly in that sense. So I don't know how you think about that.
Yeah, I have mixed feelings too. I think it's my first reaction was that it's not good, because as you said, they just gave guidance in their earnings call less than a month ago, and now they're changing it already. And they're changing the most critical parts, at least in terms of what investors have been complaining about over the last 3 to 6 months. Right, it's that they're hitting the common stock ATM too hard and compressing the MNAV. And with their earnings call guidance, they really put an end to that and clearly stated that they would not issue any more share unless to pay for the dividends or their other debt obligations. And this they changed now, only a few weeks later. And I mean, there's two ways to look at it. The negative would be that they made a mistake, and that now they're seeing that, and that they're correcting it. As you point out, if that's the case, then maybe it's better to do it right now. And it was potentially not the right thing to do at the time, and now they corrected it. But this means that again, you will potentially get more sell pressure on the common ATM. Then if you look at it the other way, I can see the other side too, is that it gives them more flexibility if they don't have this very clear cut guidance and no ATM sales at all under 2.5 MNAV. And I don't know if when they announced it in their earnings, they speculated that the stock would jump and be over 2.5 MNAV very quickly for them to be able to continue issuing shares, or what the thinking was. It would be interesting to get some more information on that in an interview or in a next earnings call of what led them to changing this at this point. But I think the positive reaction to it would be that now they have more flexibility and they can issue more shares again if the market conditions are good. And at the end, it means more Bitcoin on their balance sheet, right? And more upside pressure on the price of Bitcoin as well in the end. So I don't know, bit mixed feelings, and I think it's a mistake that they did and that they're now correcting.
Yeah, maybe they just expected the price to rise, and we've seen over the last 2 weeks, and I think we'll discuss it later. Is price action has been rather on the downside, and maybe that's why they corrected it, right? Because they thought, oh, if we have a proper guidance, it will consolidate and push upward the price of the common stock, which clearly didn't happen. The market didn't really react to their guidance at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So that could be a reason why they said, okay, we need to correct this, and we rather correct it fast. Another aspect that we will talk on this is the S&P 500 inclusion, right? There was speculation that they brought the common share ATM guidance because they knew maybe something about the S&P 500 inclusion. So maybe this now obviously brings out all the bears and saying, yeah, no, there's clearly that was a nothing burger. So interesting enough to see that come out now.
Yeah, and it will be interesting to see what it means concretely. Are we going to see another 500 million issuance of common stock next week, or will they be more prudent anyway with it? Because it just allows them to issue shares if they see that it makes sense for the company. But what does that mean really? Do they want to issue now at NemNav of 1.6, or do they still decide to hold off and only issue common stock? This we don't know yet. It will show in the next weeks and months what this change in strategy means exactly.
I mean, it also gives them the opportunity to stack sats if the price of Bitcoin goes down and they still have a low MNAV, right? Because we saw yesterday the price of Bitcoin dip a little bit. We're still looking at 115,000 more or less, which is still, in my opinion, quite high right now because we haven't seen any 5 or 10% or even 20% dip. But if it dips 20%, then they can still use the equity to actually pick up these sats at a rather cheap price. So that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the negative is really that it means that the guidance that they give out is not necessarily set in stone or can change rapidly. Right. So let's see how it evolves. I mean, if it's a one-time thing, maybe investors will still believe in the guidance that comes out. If this thing changes every second week, then it doesn't really mean much, and it might not be very positive.
Yeah, I suspect they won't be changing it anytime in the near future. They have enough leeway now, and I think now with the preferreds as well. That I mean, we saw also today their ATMs. They didn't touch the common share, right? They only touched on STRD, STRF, and STRK, not not on STRC, but we will see, as you said, in the coming weeks. And maybe that's a good time to talk a bit more about the price action, because exactly this is something that has been dawning on us now for I would say a couple of weeks. Is price all over the place, right? Not just strategy, but also all the other Bitcoin treasuries is rather abysmal, and it's quite interesting because if you still look at how much the Bitcoin treasuries in general, not just strategy, but also Metaplanet, Samler, or you can go whatever you want, everybody's still stacking like quite crazy, I would say, considering that their price action and their MNAVs are all compressed. So if we take a look at maybe a quick picture that we had, right, because we presented the valuations of some of the companies back in June 26th. So that was a few episodes back. You can see that all the Bitcoin treasury quantities that the companies had were quite substantially lower than what they are now, and their MNAVs were higher, and their stock prices were ripping back in during that time. And we saw, especially if you look at smarter web company with an MNAV of almost 25, and then now an MNAV of 2.3 diluted, but still it's quite crazy to think that we were there one and a half 2 months ago.
Yeah, I mean, volatility goes both ways, right? And I think this is to be expected. It doesn't feel nice when when it happens, but it's to be expected. If you want volatility to the upside, you will also have it to the downside. And right now, it's what's a bit strange is that it's inversely correlated to the price of Bitcoin. Right, in the last few months, because Bitcoin has been going up while those Bitcoin treasury companies' price have been going down, or the MNAV has compressed massively.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's quite interesting to see, and obviously there's been a lot of FUD about it, saying it's over. Treasury companies are are no longer, or they're not going to be able to sustain this downtrend and so on. But exactly, and that's why we're showing this slide, because it just shows that the Bitcoin treasuries are here for the long haul, right? They're gonna keep stacking no matter what. They're gonna find ways to stack as well. We're not in a deep bear market. Bitcoin price is still surging, and regardless of their MNAVs, I mean, all of these companies are still racing to the top, and every week they're still showing that they can accumulate regardless of what's happening. So I think that's what's important to keep in mind, right? And to reassure um, the investors and whoever's in the trades, is that this isn't a short-term play, it's a long-term play, and you need to withstand. Another thing that I would mention is, obviously Bitcoin treasuries have um, an additional volatility to it, because they're a play on Bitcoin. And it's like, again, imagine if you were investing in Bitcoin in the early days, except now it's even faster, because you see bear markets. For example, I think Metaplanet has had like 4 or 5 cycles of this in 1 year. So every 2 months you have a bear market, more or less. So it's, I think, their fifth or fourth or fifth bear market, and they're still able to accumulate. So obviously with volatility, you have all the rewards that will come as well. It's just about patience and sustaining those price actions.
Yeah, and it's important to remember to zoom out, right?
Exactly.
Because as you mentioned, a lot of cycles on Metaplanet, but Metaplanet is now it's down a lot over the last months, but it's still higher than it was 5 months ago, right? It's higher than the all-time high of 5 months ago. So, and strategy has been difficult over now 8 months, let's say, since its all-time high in December, January. But we have to remember that before the run to the all-time highs at the end of last year, it 4x'd between August and December, right? So the consolidation is also to be expected, or a bit of downside after a huge run up. So I think it's important to look at the big picture and zoom out a bit and see in the context of the last 4 years, but even in the last 12 months, those companies are doing extremely well still.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And here as well, right? We have another slide that we can show also, that plays into the whole kind of bear market. Is right now we're in the month of August, and it's one of the lowest months in terms of volume for the market, right? People are on vacations, traders are on vacations, and then it's actually also easier for the bears to manipulate a bit more the prices and push them down. So usually we see a downtrend during those months in the summer. If you even look at the rallies of Bitcoin before a huge rally in 2017, towards December, the prices were actually going down in the summer of 2017, and the same, I think, were more or less in the next cycle, right? So it's not the first time that we see this type of price action during summer. So I think it's quite to be expected, and let's see how September plays out. But I suspect the rest of August will continue being sideways or downwards. I think, yeah, we just need to be a bit patient. I think there's some good things that are happening in September and the rest of the year. Actually, we also expect some rate cuts in September. So I suspect that price action will be favorable as we head into the third and fourth quarter of 2025.
And speaking of interesting things happening in September, we might have the MSTR S&P 500 inclusion, right? So we can show here also some major milestones that will be happening around that. So usually what happens is the internal committee review is happening in mid-August. So this would be around now. Between now and the end of the month, the committee will meet and take the decision basically on including MSTR in the S&P 500 or not. They base that on the Q2 financial data that they receive from the companies, and MSTR has their earnings reported at the end of July. So they do have this information and are expected now to take a decision within the coming weeks. And then it will be announced publicly in the first Friday of September or the second. So it would be 5th of September or 12th of September. We should most likely get the information. Will MSTR be included in the S&P 500, yes or no, at the end of the month? So important dates coming up here in a few weeks. And if they are included, then the rebalancing would then happen on Monday, the 22nd of September. So very soon, potentially the inclusion of MSTR. We mentioned earlier that one of the speculation was that strategy already knows that they're included. That's why they gave out the guidance on the MNAV. But given the latest news of today, this is probably not the case, right? So I don't know how big the probability is of them being included, but we'll find out soon enough.
Yeah. Good thing you mentioned probability, because earlier today I was actually playing a little bit with ChatGPT and see if it could spit out some probability. So I inserted a bunch of data into it and asked what's the probability of a strategy getting included into the S&P 500. And basically, it came out with a 35% chance that it will be included in September, and an 85% chance that it gets included sometime this year. So that means 15% would be beyond. And I think that's actually some pretty good odds, in my opinion, especially that personally I wasn't expecting, or I'm not expecting to see strategy get included in September due to the fact that apparently the market does not recognize Bitcoin gains as proper gains, although accounting wise it is. And we've seen that in the price action, right? Because we also speculated before that, saying, hey, they have a huge discrepancy between those EPS estimates that the analysts do and that they actually have on the balance sheet. But we didn't see any price action reaction on either on Q1 to the downside or Q2 to the upside, right? And there clearly the market doesn't count it. So I suspect that the committee might see it the same way, right? And unfortunately, we have to wait a little bit longer. But if it's not this quarter, it should still be probably the next quarter, right? It usually takes a couple of quarters until they do it, assuming that obviously Bitcoin price stays relatively up high, and depending on how much the earnings are on Q3 for strategy.
Yeah, I really have no clue, but I also, if I had to guess, I would also think that they're not included yet in September.
Yeah. What's really interesting though is the sentiment on X seems quite positive. I think even Strive came out with some statements thinking that there is a good chance that strategy gets included. So I thought that was interesting. And also just looking at the posts from the Bitcoiners, but obviously Bitcoiner or the Bitcoin bubble on X obviously is a bubble. So yeah, maybe it's not indicative of what's happening, and that's why I tend to look at more the broad market, what they think, or see how they think about it. So just maybe to wrap it up with a final slide here, we created exactly a slide of all the upcoming bigger events for Bitcoin treasuries. One of them actually just got completed with Nakamoto on the 14th of August. They closed their merger, so they're already launching operations. And I haven't seen any buys, announcement of buys, Bitcoin buys yet. But I suspect we should see one sometime soon. And yeah, so basically we see here that there's quite a few things happening on the Bitcoin treasuries, at least on some of the major players. Obviously, this isn't an exhaustive list, but it gives you already a good indication of all the big things that are coming. And we also try to put some valuations there so that it gives you a good range of how much or what's the amounts that are coming in the Bitcoin space, right? So yeah, what are you most excited about here, Quentin?
I think it's around Metaplanet. You mentioned it earlier today that the Bitcoin treasury companies keep stacking, even though their share price is at the bottom or is going down. And the most impressive one is Metaplanet with the amount of buys again this week. I think they bought another, what is it, 500 Bitcoin, more than 500. And given their stack, it's a big percentage that they keep on stacking, and yeah, with their preferred shares that are potentially going to get approved here in September, will be nice to see and see how much demand there is for them in the Japanese market. I think that's the most exciting story, also in terms of scale. Here we mentioned it a few weeks ago, but they plan to issue 7 billion worth of those preferreds, and they have a market cap today of, what is it, 2-3 billion. So if you compare that to Strategy's preferreds, it's a lot bigger plans.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's going to be exciting to see.
And what about you?
Good question. I mean, so many big things coming up. I would actually like to hear more about 21 Capital. I think they're also going to be quite big. I mean, as you see, they already have stacked 43,500 Bitcoin. Obviously, this is already somewhere in their balance sheet, but I would love to know a little bit more about their operations, because they said that they would bring up some new products. So that's something I would be looking for. And due to their size, I think it could be interesting to see how they plan to play out, because their Bitcoin yield might not be as high as a smaller player like Metaplanet. So I would love to see how they play this one out and compete for trust in the market, because they also haven't launched their operations yet, right? But Jack Mallers is for sure an interesting guy. So and a smart guy as well. So looking forward to see him in action on the Bitcoin treasuries front.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. And we haven't heard much from Jack Mallers on 21 since the deal was announced months ago. Right? So this is one to look out for here.
All right, so that's it for this one. So thanks a lot for listening, and see you on the next one. Cheers.
Thank you, everyone. See you next time. Bye-bye.
How many chairs are you sitting on right now?